Final question, Doris. One struggle I have right now is keeping in touch with my SOI. I don't want to seem salesy and just call them and ask for business. What should I do?
What should you do? Well, I think it's actually probably more simple than you're thinking, Doris. What I would do is create a bit of a multi-pronged approach. You want to do two things. You want to provide value and you want to be memorable. So if you can sort of find things to do that are going to put you in each category in the eyes of your clients, that's going to do wonders for you. So, okay, let's think of it the first way. So how do you provide value? Well, there's a few ways to do that. Let's say that your clients bought a property from you last year. Obviously, you should keep track of when they bought the property. You should be creating, I would say, quarterly updates on the valuation of the home. I would also find ways to create value for them outside of their own home. So let's say you saw something go up in the neighborhood near them. You should give them your opinion on what it might sell for, rather than them being able to just open it up on an app and check the value on their own, which they can already do. There's lots of information out there. Create more value for them. Maybe call the listing agent, have a conversation, see if there's any information you can get from the listing agent about that particular listing and how it might compare to their house. Anything that would be helpful to them or make them feel like they're in the know in their neighborhood. People love talking about listings in their neighborhood. So any intel you can gather and then provide to your clients will make you seem like the go-to. And then that will have a bit of a flywheel effect, won't it? Because then they'll say, well, hey, I can call Jessica. She always knows what's happening in the neighborhood. And oh, my friend lives 4 streets over and she wants to know about this listing. People will then start relying upon you for more than just the house price and the sold price. So that's a little tip. And then also be memorable, right? So are you there for clients when there's important milestones in their life? Like remember those. Mike, you had a good tip a few weeks ago and we did it for you for your birthday. Wishing people a happy birthday the day before their birthday can be memorable, right? This was your little tip. Things like when you're out with your clients, make note of things that are important to them. Let's say they are having a baby or maybe they're getting married soon. If you can wish them well for those occasions or send a gift box if they're getting married or whatever you want to do, but be memorable. And building on that, I would say create a calendar of things that you will do each year for all of your clients around certain seasons or times. We have one agent at our old office that did this really, really well. And what she would do every single Halloween is hand out pumpkins to all of the clients. You know her.
Rebecca, she's been on the show twice. Yeah.
Absolutely. She's a powerhouse. And she and her assistant would drive around the city handing out pumpkins. And it cost her not that much money and a little bit of time. But I tell you, her clients that don't receive pumpkins one year, if she got busy or forgot, they would all call her and ask where their pumpkin was. They don't buy pumpkins because they know she's bringing them. So things like that can be cute. If you live near a school and you want to celebrate the end of school, or I've seen some people get out little signs that say, slow down, this is a neighborhood, kids playing. You could drop those off every September. You can do things around the holidays in your region. If your community celebrates a certain holiday, send out packages for that. And then if you really operationalize it every year and make a plan for it, it won't be so much of a burden. And it's just sort of part of your monthly schedule of things to do.
Mm-hmm. Those are really good tips. And I think like there's a few things here, and it's people need to invest time and they also need to invest some budget in their SOI. Like generally your repeat referral in SOI is going to be 90% of the deals that you're going to do. Yet agents are so focused on trying to find the next like silver bullet or get the next tool in order that's going to generate them more leads. When it's like, why don't you just go back to your SOI repeat referral business and actually allocate your marketing budget to them? So when you're saying like pumpkins and packages and things like that, people might be thinking, wow, that sounds like it's going to get expensive. Well, so is like every online lead provider ever in existence. Like that's always going to be expensive. If you're going to run a bunch of ads, that's going to be expensive. So why not allocate, if 90% of your business is coming from that source, like if we were very data centric about this, we would allocate 90% of our budget to that source, to that marketing source, since that's where 90% of our business comes from. So we should also be allocating 90% of our marketing efforts to that source too, which is exactly what you're getting to. And you brought up a number of creative ideas. I don't think that there's one like perfect idea that exists out there. It's just being creative and using seasonality. I love how you said that. Leverage seasonality as an opportunity to reach out. Generally, there's two suggestions that I have here. The first one is if you're worried about asking for business but know you need to, you can just simply use the line. This is a really good way to approach this conversation if you're uncomfortable asking for business, is just simply letting people know that you're looking to grow your business and do they have any ideas. So if I was role playing this with you, Jess, I'd be like, hey Jess, how you doing? How's life? We have a little catch up and I say, reason for my call is I'm really looking to grow my real estate business and I'm just reaching out to some folks to see if they have any ideas. Now, in saying that, A, they may come up with some ideas, but more importantly, now their radar is on to try and find you potential clients because you've now planted that seed in their mind. So sometimes we think we need like a really impressive script when really we can just call them and like say, hey, we're looking to grow our real estate business. Do they have any ideas? And you'd be surprised how many times that leads to a referral without you feeling salesy. Just because this question did say the kind of concern around feeling salesy. And then the other thing that I would mention is for most clientele, if you're in touch with them in a one-to-one capacity 4 times a year, that's more than enough. And so let's say you're doing a monthly email newsletter and then 4 times a year, there's some sort of one-to-one reach out. Maybe that's a handwritten card. Maybe that's something on their anniversary. Maybe that's a phone call on their birthday. Maybe that's one event that you have. If you're doing that 4 times a year, that client isn't going to forget about you and the referrals will continue. And then once you start to dip beneath that is where we start to see that decline. So that's just a very easy strategy. And sometimes we think we need to hit them more times than that. But between like an email newsletter that would go out monthly basis and then 4 more one-to-one touch points, you're totally fine.
I love that. And the truth is, I mean, they've done studies on this, and 85% of people would use their same real estate
Yeah.
agent again. So
But
it's,
isn't it like 25% actually do or something?
I guess, oh,
Maybe it's 85% say, I've read this stat before. I think it's 85% after the transaction say they would use their real estate agent again. I think it's like
yep.
85% of buyer's agents and 80% of listing agents. But in reality, only 25% of people use their agent again, which I think this speaks to the fact that there's a huge gap in our ability to stay in touch with people after the transaction. Because people are satisfied with the experience they had, and after the transaction, they say they would use the agent again, but then they forget about the agent because the agent doesn't stay in touch. And so there's a huge opportunity for all of us who are doing transactions. But here's the other good news about this, I find, is if you're a newer real estate agent, you're getting into the industry and you're like, well, everyone already knows a real estate agent. Well, yeah, they may have already transacted, but 85% say they would, but 25% do. That leaves a good solid 75% of people out there who would use you as an agent.
You got chance on your side if you're going to keep in touch, or if you're a new agent and other agents don't keep in touch.
Yeah,
Either way.
exactly.
There's one line that I like too, when asking for a referral.
Mm,
And my approach to asking for referrals is a little bit structured. I find most agents ask for referrals down the line, right? Once the deal's done, they've already closed, they'll reach out a few months later and say, hey, do you have a referral for me? I'm never too busy for your friends or family, is usually like the classic line. And what I've found is actually people are more likely to give you a referral at their height of happiness. And when is their height of happiness in a transaction? Well, it depends if they're a buyer or a seller. A buyer's peak happiness is the day that they win the deal. So the day that they buy their house, and I don't mean close on their house, I mean put the offer in and it gets accepted, that's their peak happiness level. Closing day is not a buyer's happiest day. Why is that? Well, logistics kick in, right? Like they had to just wire over all of their life savings plus
yeah.
their firstborn, right? To close it. The moving truck is late, their toddler has a cold, like it's incredibly stressful. So I like to ask for referrals, and I coach other agents to do that too when happiness is at its peak. For sellers, it's also probably not, well, it could be closing day depending on the transaction because that's when they're actually getting the funds through. That's also the day they see the commission check roll out. So that's not always the best. Usually it's when the deal is accepted.
Yeah.
And the line I like to use is I like to compliment them. And this is true, right? For most people, I find this to be very true. I'll usually say something like, you're the absolute perfect client for me. I really loved working with you. Do you know other people or families like yourselves? I would love to provide the same experience to them. And
Oh,
you're sort of complimenting that client. And usually it is true, right? Like, at least for me, like I always feel this sense of loss when I don't get to work with these people anymore because I spent so much time with them. But if you do find that ideal client, see if they have like-minded people in their circle that they can introduce you to. Because chances are, if you had a 10 out of 10 experience working with them, the same is going to be true for their friends who are similar to them. And I find that line really helpful because you're complimenting them and you're also combining it with asking at the peak happiness rather than 2 months down the road. So you could try that, see if it
That's
works.
so key. I would suggest everybody to rewind that and re-listen to that section because there's a lot of gold in that. The concept of asking at peak happiness is something that a lot of agents don't do. That is such a genius strategy. And you're right on closing. There's so many logistics. There's as a buyer, like you said, there's big amounts of money, but there's also like setting up insurance and utilities, right? And I move into my home and I didn't realize the water pressure isn't great. And like there's so much more on their mind. Whereas when they've actually signed off on the deal, got the deal, or removed their contingencies if there's contingencies, what do they do at that point in time? They call all their family and friends. Every time they're out, they're telling everybody about the house that they just bought and they can't wait to move into. So you're hitting them at this peak happiness, but peak happiness is also peak to discussion with other people about their house and about the excitement, which then lends itself so beautifully into a referral. At that point in time, I also like to send them a small little gift. Like I'll do a closing gift, but I like to do a small little gift when they get the home as well. And this could be, even if you're very budget conscious, it could be as simple as like a little handwritten card. And just these little points that make people realize, wow, we got that house and Jess was such a great realtor. And then from there, the referrals start to come in. So the structure that I think you're providing here is something that if somebody struggles with asking for referrals, this peak happiness, I love the way that you frame that, is a very effective strategy.
Go and do it, everybody. Then tell
Go
us
and
how
do
many.
it. Love it. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for watching or listening to this episode. Remember, you can reach out anytime at revrealestateschool.com. If you have questions, feel free to just reach out on our website, Instagram, or send us an email, and we'd be happy to answer them live on the show. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next lesson.